How many people actually signed up?
Okay, we're gonna start. I know there's a bunch of anxious children here that are chomping at the bit after the bit class. So,
I'm playing really.
don't you know what put the last first in the first basket? So, we have a volunteer that recruited all the names. So she's gonna call them out and we can go.
Anna.
Alright, so my amazing fact is on penguins. So I read something, it said that penguins are probably the most romantic animal. And so ghetto penguins will search the beaches to find the prettiest pebble and then bring it back to their mate, and they'll have that mate for life. I thought it was really cool.
Wedding wing.
And my father is a penguin, so.
Oh. Did you bring the pebble?
It's his nickname.
Oh. Good job. Shashi. Michelle with one L.
Bottom of his bag, huh?
Almost.
Well, this is, some of you know a lot about it, I think. Some of you do it, maybe don't know so much about what it all is about. It's called earthing. Earthing. Grounding. Grounding ourselves to Mother Earth. The earth that God created, the energy of earth that is healing for our bodies. And I was so amazed when we arrived here and said, everybody in bare, so many people in bare feet. Means you're grounded in the earth. But when you're in houses that are made with synthetic carpets and wood even, you're no longer grounded. So, let's see, I think it was 1970s when a gentleman by the name of Clint Ober had suffered terrible loss of his own liver. And he decided to take a different walk in his life, to get rid of all of his monetary things. He no longer had a wife, he had children that were around, and he got rid of everything and got in our RV and went traveling and just went to different places and landed at someplace in Arizona. And he thought, this might be a good place. But he didn't feel right there. And then he drove a little farther and he got to Sedona, Arizona. And all of a sudden, I'm home. He felt connected to the earth. He was calmer. He was feeling better. This man, with the surgery on his liver, he lost 5/6 of his liver. And when he figured out to get connected to the earth, it regrew. God helped him restore his entire liver. So he's a healthy man of late in his 70s now, today. When I grabbed the book to leave home, which came in the new package. We got a package to give as a gift. And it's not the one that was in my former kit. So this does not have the whole story of his documentary about how he figured all this stuff out. But this book is full of testimonies of people who are using it and the phenomenal healing results that are coming from it. So what he has done, I encourage everybody to go to Earthing Movie. Very simple title to remember, and it gives the documentary about his whole story. And how he started figuring this out for himself. And it was crazy because the first thing he did, well, he'd been worked in the electrical field, so he knew the value of grounding wires, grounding rods, grounding buildings to the ground to prevent fire. And it just dawned on me, well, inflammation in our bodies is fire. And so then he thought about, how am I going to get myself grounded to the earth in the house that's not grounded? So what he did is, as his experiment on himself, he went outside and buried a rod in the ground, tied a wire from it into his bedroom, tied this wire around his toe for the night. He had a meter that was telling him he was getting the grounding energy there. And usually he had to take a number of pain medication to even get to sleep. That night he fell asleep looking at his monitor, and in the morning he woke up. He noticed a difference. There was a definite difference in his pain. And he'd been able to go to sleep without any medication. So he knew he was onto something. Pretty quick he got a couple friends to do the same thing. And in a couple of days one of his friends came back and asked him, he says, "You suppose this could be helping my arthritis? It feels better." And so that was encouragement to go on. And so he and team members came together and figuring things out. And pretty soon on, they needed a test, a trial, to prove to other people that something's really worth going forward on here. And what he came up with was asking the local hairdresser if she knew of any people with certain pains and aches that might be willing to take part in this experiment. Well, 60 ladies came forward right quick. So he had 30 grounded and 30 ungrounded for 30 days. And it was very obvious as those were grounded were realizing significant results from being grounded. Okay, so then they had to develop, how people could use this instead of the primitive things they'd come up with so far, a little bit past the wire around their toe. But anyway, he has developed products, and over the years they have improved them so that they're very people-friendly now. And it was in December my husband was diagnosed with a couple of things, including neuropathy. He was having a lot of difficulty with his legs at night, keeping him from sleeping. We'd been doing some things for him that was helping, but oftentimes he'd have to wake up in the middle of the night and repeat. He was putting an ointment on his legs and some leggings on to keep him more comfortable so they weren't in pain at night. And may I have a drink of water, please? Anyway, we'd been using, we got I found out about this, and we ordered the grounding mat to put on our bed. What the value of that is, you're sleeping grounded all night. This is the one that, the size that they make just for like putting under your feet at a table or your desk or something. Don't let me forget to tell you the story about my friend that used this. The mat for our bed that we use is more supple like this one. This is the pillow color. So by using any of them, you're being grounded while you're sitting on it for a little while or putting your feet on it. There's also just little pads you can attach to. Oh, thank you, Karen. Thank you. pads that you can attach to areas that are specifically hurting. And how this all connects, you need a grounded outlet in your house so that there's no electricity coming through. It's only the grounding, the grounding adapter. Has plastic prongs on it so that they go in the main. There it is. Anyway, you're all welcome to come up and look at this later if you want. It's just an adapter that makes it possible to use a grounded outlet to get the ground line to you without being, there's no electricity coming through it. So this goes into the outlet, and then the grounding wire plugs into that, and the other end of it snaps onto your product, and then you're grounded in an otherwise ungrounded space. I'm sorry? Yes. So after we'd been using the grounding mat for a month, Ken forgot to put the stuff on his legs at night, and he hasn't needed it since. Neuropathy, that's huge. For people that suffer with it, it's, they can't sleep. It gets so bad they can't sleep. They're taking pain medication. And 2 doctors told us that's what he should do, just take pain medication, like Aleve or acetaminophen, and that's all the answer they had. But grounding fixed him.
You're fixed.
A friend of ours, shortly after we got our grounding mat, told me about the surgery, an extremely horrible sounding abdominal surgery where several of her organs were attached to each other that shouldn't be. So they went in and unattached all that and made things right. And the first surgery, she didn't have this. And I gave it to her, and she kept not going and getting it plugged in. She had to do was plug it in. And I sent the kit with her so she could test. Turned out they did not have grounded outlets all over their house either, like we don't. But they did in the other room. All she had to do was run an extension cord to her bed. She's a tiny person, so this short one was sufficient for her. When she finally got it plugged in was just before she had the second surgery. And 2 weeks later, she went back to, here's another thing. She's one of the most skeptical people I know. That's what kept her from getting it plugged in to try it. But I kept after her instead of taking it home. And she finally plugged it in and had this second surgery. And she went, and she was having to wear that colostomy bag for all that time, too. Anyway, so then she had that second surgery, and she did start using the mat. 2 weeks later, she went back to the doctor for her checkup and make sure everything was clean and doing well. And she says, "I'm healing up pretty good, aren't you?" And he said, "Oh, you can't be. It just doesn't happen with this kind of surgery." And he uncovered her incision, and he said, "What have you been doing? I've never seen anything like this." He went and called another doctor that had been in the surgery room with him. They couldn't believe that she'd healed so well. She'd been on the grounding mat for the 2 weeks since that surgery. So that's one of our testimonials. Clint Ober is the name of the gentleman that put this all together, and I think I'm a convinced believer. My knees have had arthritis for years. I've had PRP, if anybody knows what that is, on them, and I generally need a once-a-year booster injection in my knees to keep it going well. It was bone on bone bad arthritis, and that PRP saved my knees. But once a year, I need to go back for a booster, and which I'm past my year's time now, and I think it's because I'm earthing. I'm not needing that booster. So. Okay, in the event you do not have grounded outlets in your home, you can buy the grounding rod with the wire attached that clips that snaps on the grounding mats. So, I was just visiting with Alfred, and he says he's not one that likes to go barefoot. So I thought, this could be a solution for you to be more grounded more of your life. For better health, for healing of whatever might be the matter with us. And this book is full of testimonials. You're welcome to look at it, of people with just about anything you'd imagine. He mentioned many times in the documentary about people with MS. He said just right off, it generally helps people with MS. Because it's all about inflammation. This squelches the inflammation. He declares someone who's grounded cannot have inflammation.
Like, this would be wonderful for my mom.
Yep.
Because she can't go barefoot because she has bone spurs on the
Yes.
bottom of her feet. And
Yes.
toes are crooked and cut. And she's having to deal with, pain in her hands, and she can't knit like she used to.
Yeah.
So,
And God made the earth the way He made it. And in the beginning, men were barefoot. Now we're disconnected from the earth grounding, and that's why there's so many health issues. That's a lot of it. And it happened back in the 60s when plastics were developed. What the first thing they do is put rubber soles on all their shoes. We're disconnected from the earth. Thank you for all you people going barefoot. Beautiful example. Yeah.
one more question.
My amazing fact is on black widows. As some of you may know, I have a black widow that I kind of keep as a pet. So,
You're brave.
That's lengthy.
so there are 31 species that can be found in every continent except Antarctica. They are mostly found in North and South America, black widow specifically. And while the most iconic widow spider comes in a solid shiny black with a bright red hourglass shape on its abdomen, they also appear with orange or yellow hourglass shapes. Some species have more red and white spots and stripes on them, so they don't all look the same. And other species have a base color that's more brown, and these are often referred to as brown widows. This is only in reference to females, though. As the males, they appear with more markings and other color variations. The males are poisonous, but they supposedly don't have fangs that are big enough to penetrate humans. So, they're a lot smaller.
Are they always shiny?
Always kill spiders.
Well, black widows, I think the females are always shiny. The males will kind of just have other markings on them. And so I don't know if I've seen a male for sure or not. I think I have before, but the spiderlings, the babies, they will be white or yellow when they're born, and they have to molt a few times before they will get their dark color. The females can reach up to 1.5 inches, and with legs included. Whereas the males, they will only be half that size, if even. The average lifespan of a female black widow is about 3 years, and the males are only about 6 months.
It's the reason why they're called villains.
Their venom is 15 times stronger than that of a rattlesnake. Their bites are rarely fatal to humans, however, as they inject far less venom into their prey compared to a rattlesnake. The venom of a female is more potent than that of the males, as the females will inject a large amount into their prey. The males, yeah, like I said, are still poisonous, and the spiderlings, but their fangs aren't large enough to penetrate humans, so they're not a harm to us. Black widows are not a very aggressive creature. They only bite if they feel extremely threatened or if you disturb their web that has eggs laid in it. So they're not as scary as some people think, I guess.
I got scared one time. It was up on the ladder.
The bite of these spiders feels like a pinprick. A person bitten may experience nausea, muscle aches and cramps, weakness, hypertension, and paralysis of the diaphragm, which makes breathing difficult. In rare cases, the bites can be fatal to humans, but are unlikely. These severe cases mainly occur in small children or elderly, or those that have a very compromised immune system. The predators to a black widow are wasps, birds, and other small mammals, but are also a favorite to praying mantis. The black widow's diet mostly consists of mosquitoes, flies, and grasshoppers, but they are also known to eat other spiders as well as frogs and lizards. When they catch their prey, they ingest it with this enzyme that breaks down their internal organs and turns it into a liquid that they can easily digest. But they don't need to eat very often, and they can survive weeks or even months without eating. I've experienced this because sometimes I forget to feed it.
How long have you had it as a pet?
Well, this one's actually fairly recent. My last one kind of died. Well, I've had probably 4. Well, I've had more than that, but some I've put together, and one of them gets eaten. It's not always that the big one eats the little one. Sometimes the little one eats the big one. So, but yeah, they can survive a long time without food, and this is because they have a slow metabolism, which allows them to conserve energy and survive in harsh conditions. And despite having 8 eyes, black widow spiders do not have very good eyesight. They are pretty blind. So they rely mostly on like the vibrations carried through the strands of their web, which is one of the reasons why they build their webs in irregular and messy forms.
Can't see what they're doing.
Black widow's web silk particularly is known for its strength. On a per weight basis, for example, it's 5 times stronger than steel. They say scientists have tried to recreate the formula to use it in different things like bridges and such, but they aren't able to recreate it. Flies and mosquitoes, and sometimes frogs. A female can lay up to 900 eggs, which will hatch after 30 days. And then the spiderlings will stay in there for another 2 weeks before they start emerging from the cocoon. But there are only a few spiderlings that actually make it to adulthood, as they will cannibalize on each other for food. So, big one kind of eats little one, and each spider to their own to survive. And a lot of people think that they have their name because the female will eat the male after mating, but that's not always the case. They are cannibalistic, however, it does not happen as often as you think. Reports reveal that male eating doesn't usually happen in the wild. It has happened during lab tests, but that's mainly because they are in a contained environment and the male can't escape. So he eventually gets eaten. Since they are cannibalistic, a male widow will take extra caution, for sure. A study revealed that male black widow spiders intentionally look for a properly fed female to mate with, so that there's less chance of them getting eaten. And they find out if she's well fed, with the aid of the female's pheromones, and will also know by sending vibrations through the web. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had. Anyone that hasn't seen The Black Widow?
Ariel?
Did anybody tell Kimberly that Daniel had a problem with his arm in the tent yesterday?
But yeah, they're all so attracted to Daniel. The first one I kept was crawling on his arm. And he had one crawling on his arm yesterday.
Wasn't it you at our house that just fell out of the beam just like this down under your arm? Oh my goodness. At our house, set a birthday party out. It can be anywhere in the world. So I'd like to see this.
It's at the very top.
Well, since getting married, we've been doing a garden on our own and experimenting and learning a few different, learning how soil is a lot more and trying to build up the soil. So we're going to talk about one of the main things that's needed in the soil for growing plants, and that's nitrogen.
So, nitrogen is one of the main nutrients in soil that helps plants grow strong and healthy. Most of you probably already know this, especially since a lot of you are farmers, but I recently just learned this, so I thought I would share it with all of you. So, 78% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, but that's not helpful to plants because it's not in the right form for them to actually take it up and use it. So this is where nitrogen-fixing plants come in to play. So the roots of legumes, which are like beans and peas and things like that, they create a habitat, or these little nodules, for the bacteria in the soil that fix nitrogen. So these nodules house the nitrogen-fixing, they house the bacteria that fix nitrogen in the soil. And so when you... Yeah, so they have these little nodules on them, that are basically full of bacteria that like have the nitrogen or ammonium in them, and when the plant dies or when it gets tilled into the soil, then all of the things in that little nodule like get dispersed out into the soil, and then the nearby plants can use all the nitrogen that is from these beans. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, do pass them out to like anyway, that's pretty much it. But it's really interesting if you actually look at the roots and see these little balls that are on the roots, because yeah, it's just a natural way to get nitrogen back into your soil, and then whatever you plant after that, those plants can have more nitrogen to use. So yeah. Good?
Okay, my amazing fact is on secretary birds. Does anyone know what they do?
Take messages for their bus.
That's what I would have thought. That was my first guess. Is there any other guesses? Or does everyone give up?
Do they warn the rest of the jungle like hares?
No. Okay, they are birds that are located in East Africa, and they primarily kill their prey with their, like, by stomping on them.
I like this word.
It's one of the only birds that does that. They have a lifespan of 10 to 15 years. They grow 4.5 feet tall, approximately. They weigh about 10 pounds. The adults have no predators really, but the eggs may be eaten by other birds. They walk anywhere from 12 to 18 miles a day. Their scientific name means archer of snakes, and that is one thing they like to eat most is snakes. They rarely fly. They move around on foot most of the time, only taking air to reach their nest or for courtship displays. Secretary bird. They have a wingspan of 6.5 feet. They're one of just two birds that prey, that hunt on the ground, mostly. Secretary birds have one of the strongest and fastest kicks in the animal kingdom. They have also been seen hunting juvenile cats. Secretary birds also mate for life. Once paired up, they will stay together for life. They will even use the same nest year after year. They make their nests on top of thorny trees, and they lay 2 to 3 blue/greenish eggs. And that's all I had.
Daniel?
Okay, I'm going to talk on barnacle geese. Has anyone heard of those? Barnacle geese? So they spend their summers in the Arctic coast from northern Greenland to East Siberia. They nest in late May into June.
And they choose to nest on the top of pinnacles that are up to 100 feet tall in cliffs from protection from wild animals such as foxes, polar bears, and falcons as their main predators for nesting. The only problem is once the chicks hatch, they have to feed before they starve to death, and the only way to get off the cliffs is to jump off the cliff. What? Oh, it's rocks.
Either make it or...
So at 1 to 2 days old, they get their first flying lesson. A lot of them, a lot of you probably seen small geese, and they can't fly very well, so they have to take a leap of faith and base jump off the cliff and glide up their best to the rugged rocks below. Their softness of their bone, Yahweh made them with an incredible softness of their bones for the first few days of their life to withstand the harsh fall. And around 50% of the barnacle geese end up surviving the first 2 days of their life between predators and the fall, I guess. And their migration journey is around 2,000 miles. They travel around 70 miles per hour and takes less than 6 hours. They overwinter in milder temperatures around the coast of the UK and Ireland area. So I think that's about all I had, unless somebody wants to see a video of their jump off the cliff. Probably this is rich cookies.
James. Peter, the taller one.
So, I am curious, does anyone know what the smallest mammal is? Do any of you younger folks know? What? Mammal. No one that I already told, or no one in my family. Yes, a shrew. That's correct. So, what is called the Eurasian pygmy shrew, known simply as the pygmy shrew. Eurasian means that it's in Asia, Europe, and America, which is kind of an interesting word. But it is 4 to 6 centimeters long, with a tail of 3 to 4 centimeters, which is 70% of its head and body length. So its tail is actually really long. It eats every 15 to 20 minutes, and they eat insects and spiders and wood lice. So they have a really high metabolism, so they have to keep eating the water food. So it will die. It will actually die if it goes 1 hour without food. So it actually gets famished fairly quickly. So also, it has to eat 3 times its body weight daily to survive, which is also pretty incredible.
Hey, Mommy, you should bring up a picture.
And they are also they also weigh 2 to 3 grams, which is less than a penny, which is hard to believe that they're they're bigger than a penny, but they weigh less than a penny. So. They also live 2 to 4 months at peak mortality rate and have a max lifespan of 13 months. So they don't live very long. And during the winter, they also lose up to 28% of their body weight. And they have 2 to 3 litters per year and give birth to 5 to 6 young. They don't hibernate. They also live in underground tunnels created by moles and other burrowing species, so they don't really make their own shelter, which is kind of interesting. And they forage underground in those tunnels. One of the facts that really intrigued me was that they have a heartbeat of 12,000 beats per minute, which was ridiculous. Or, I think, I can double check. It's 1,200, not 12,000. It's still a lot. So, they have a millimeter snout, so it's kind of interesting to see. Anyways, that's all I have.
James?
Right, I'm going to be talking about God's amazing creature, Adam kind, humans. So, raise your hand if you have ever been in a disagreement, like an argument. Has anyone here been in an argument? Alright, that's about everyone. Alright, so, have you ever shown evidence to someone that showed that they're wrong and they still didn't change their mind? So why is this? Why do people act this way? Well, humans have what is called a congruency bias, which is just a fancy way of saying that people want to be consistent with their beliefs and actions, and they want to stick with their past ways of thinking, acting, and their past choices. And this is why people don't change their mind very often, and as they get older, they tend to change a little less than they did when they were younger. Not to say that old people don't change, but it's just a little less, you know. So, and one of the reasons that this is actually helpful for like human survival, you know, there's definitely situations where changing would be helpful, but if a human being was constantly changing and always changing their mind and doing things differently, then it's a little bit costly in terms of like resources and energy. So actually not constantly changing kind of saves energy, which, you know, the body's wired to be a little bit lazy. It's helpful and it's not helpful. It really depends on what you're being lazy in. It's not necessarily a bad thing to conserve energy. You know, that's what machinery does for us. And so here's a little story to illustrate this. So imagine that, you know, you're asked, what's your favorite type of ice cream? And you say chocolate. And then someone presents you with 2 bowls of ice cream. One's chocolate and one's vanilla. You're then going to feel a little bit of pressure to accept the chocolate ice cream because you just told them that your favorite type of ice cream was chocolate. And so that's a little illustration of like how this works. You know, if you take the vanilla, then you're going to be, you know, there's this feeling of like, well, maybe I wasn't being honest. I need to stick with what I said before. And so the communists actually used this during the Korean War on like prisoners. They would get them to be, you know, say something about like the Americans that was slightly negative, and then say something that was a little bit more so, and they would keep going and going. And eventually, by using this very principle, they were able to get American prisoners to like help the Communist Party. And so it's actually kind of a powerful principle when you think about it. And I think the takeaway here is that people should be, you know, a little careful with what commitments we make in life, especially because your brain is kind of wired to keep your word in situations and to stick with what you said and with your past actions. And that's all I got.
What was the
The term was commitment, inconsistency, cognitive bias, but I kind of shortened it to the congruency bias.
Will you say that once more fast?
The commitment and consistency cognitive bias.
Thank you.
I think he's nervous.
It gets that way sometimes.
You're going to do an amazing fact on nerves?
No. I just got really nervous. I just wanted, Anna said she did the most loving animal. I'm just going to do the most loving animal, so.
I said that's what someone would say.
Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. So anyway, the little creature that I picked out, I don't think it's an animal. Why did I call it an animal? But anyway, it's a very important little creature. It lives in the earth, in the dirt. It comes up and it eats leaves and little yummy stuff and gobbles it up and then it poops out dirt. Can you guess what it is?
Earthworm.
Earthworm, yeah. Aren't those little important little creatures? Some people think they're so important that they put bins out and they put all of their garbage in it and they eat it up just so that they can get there. They want to turn their garbage into like dirt. They call it worm castings. And then what do you think they would do with that? Flush it down the toilet? No. They take that and they put it out on their little plants in the garden. As soon as they sprinkle it and get a little water on it, those plants. Did you see those beans? That's what they turn into. They go like this, big plants. Because it's so healthy. So these little worms, they take the leaves and they take the straw and all of that nice stuff and they turn it into nice, nutritious dirt. But the loving part about these worms is they have 4 to 5 pairs of hearts. That's a lot of hearts. Can you imagine how much love you could do if you had that many hearts? What do you mean opposite?
That many broken hearts.
But anyway, these worms, whenever they're little baby worms, they're just kind of like red and just kind of like a string and get pointy on both ends. One is a little flatter than the other and the other's a little pointy. But when they get big enough to mate, have you ever seen, it looks like they have a little Band-Aid wrapped around them? Have you ever wondered what that was? That means they're old enough to mate. So they'll crawl out of their hole, one worm like this, and the other worm will come out of their hole, and they'll fasten that little stuff together, and it's real lovey. It just gets all slimy and gooey and it gets like this big slime layer there. And they'll do that for about an hour. And the funny thing is this one here is not a male, and it's not a female, and this one's not a male, and it's not a female either. They're both males, and they're both females. Isn't that weird? But the thing is, it can't fertilize its own eggs. It needs another earthworm to fertilize its eggs. They go like this, and this one puts sperm over to these eggs, and this one here puts sperm over to these eggs. So they share, fertilize each other, and then when they're done, then they separate, and then that little Band-Aid, they grow like it's like a protein thing around the eggs and sperm. And then there's like little holes and pockets in it, and the earthworm goes. That little band-aid starts coming off the top of the worm's head, and as it goes like that, it mixes the eggs and fertilizes all the eggs. And then it goes off the end of his head. And when it pops off the end of his head, it's like a little cocoon. And that little cocoon has all these little fertilized eggs in there. And if the conditions are right, then all these eggs you start seeing all these little hearts in there. And they start growing until they pop out as little worms. But the amazing thing is, if the conditions aren't good, that little cocoon can sit in the ground, they say up to 50 years or more. Just sit there until the conditions are right. So if the conditions are bad, something catastrophe happens, that cocoon's there, and all the mama worms die, everything's dead, and 10 years later the conditions get right, then all those little worms will start hatching out. And then all of a sudden there'll be worms again. Isn't that amazing? It just has to be the right condition for them to hatch, or will just stay there in a dormant state. But anyway, Yahweh made them to make the earth much more rich and fertile and happy fishermen.
Okay, so what I was gonna talk about is how life gets energy. So does everybody know where our energy comes from? All life. Okay. From food, right? So where does our food get it?
From the sun and the soil.
Maybe if you're eating leafy greens. Did the cow get it from there? Yeah, well, I saw you eating a hamburger. I bet that didn't quite work that way. But anyway, that is true. So there's a symbiotic relationship between all life on Earth has to get its energy from photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the action of sunlight and water in a living plant. And it makes, guess what? Sugar. Really simple. So we hear sugar is bad. Well, refined sugar is bad, but all sugar isn't bad because we would have no life on Earth without sugar. That's the only stored form of nutrient that can be stored that's actually created from water, sunlight, and this little thing called chlorophyll. And there is no animal on Earth, no mammal, no insect, no bacteria of any kind that can create sugar on its own. There are a few mosses or lichens that can actually create small quantities of photosynthetic action and create a certain amount of sugar, really small quantities. So if you see the rocky cliff, saw some of that where the bird was falling, creates these little lichens on the rocks, and they can actually create a little tiny bit of photosynthetic action, but you see they don't grow very big. They're little tiny. But when we get into actual real plants, they can create vast, enormous quantities of sugar. And the sugar in a plant feeds the bacteria in the soil, so a plant actually exudes sugar out through its roots and feeds the bacteria in the soil, which in turn, the bacteria in the soil create nutrients for the plant to grow. And so that's a symbiotic relationship that happens all the time. And if that symbiotic relationship isn't in place, we have neither plants nor bacteria. They're both gone. And it's very important that that cycle is not interrupted. You know, and that's part of what some of the conventional farming methods have decreased that activity substantially. But in a healthy environment, that's how all the energy is created. So then animals eat plants, we eat plants, or we eat animals that eat plants, and that's how we get our energy, as does every other living being on Earth through this one little process called photosynthetic action. So, or photosynthesis. So if you guys ever think about an amazing fact of where all life starts, all the energy for all life on Earth, it's in that one little chlorophyll cell that creates photosynthetic action.
Jerry.
Luke 12:17. What are we doing? All right. Never mind. I'll just read it. Okay, I know what I'll go to the Matthew 10. And try to reference me over there. Okay, Matthew 10, 26 to 31. Fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light. What you hear in the ears, that preach ye upon the housetops. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. But rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. So the verse I wanted to concentrate on was verse 30. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So, I mean, I've often thought that was really a wonderful verse for him to know even how many hairs I have on my head. Does anybody know how many hairs you have on your head? Or what an average is?
I know mine are less than everybody.
Well, yeah.
Because you stopped counting them, they felt left out.
Last time we count. So the average number of hairs is about 100,000. So that person has 100,000 hairs. Except for and the average length in a lifetime from about 590 miles. That's the average lifetime of how long. 600 miles. And that's counting this little article that includes like the nose hairs, cumulative to 6.5 feet of that total. one of the Luke 21. But there shall not a hair of your head carried. There's a verse. Where is that?
Luke,
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Luke 12:7.
What's that?
Luke 12:7.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Are you Daniel? Yeah.
But even the very hairs of your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore ye are more valuable than many hairs of your head.
You know, my dad has a t-shirt that says, God created a few perfect heads. The rest he covered with hair.
Add to your amazing fact. How many of you little ones know how the sugar is made? How many of you little ones know what you breathe out every day?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. So every single day, you breathe out one ingredient towards the sugar that the plants will create. The chlorophyll in the leaves is like the machine that collects the sunlight for the energy to create the sugar. The sugar is created by you breathing out carbon dioxide and the plant pulling up water from the roots. And then it separates the hydrogen and oxygen in the water, and it combines the carbon dioxide that you breathe out with the hydrogen to make the sugar. And then it breathes out oxygen for us to breathe in, to breathe out carbon dioxide, to make sugar, to breathe out oxygen so you can breathe.
That's why it's good to keep plants in your house.
So plants are literally not only the energy makers, but also the air makers. So they're extremely necessary. Anyway.
So the point is, don't forget to breathe.
Okay, I'm doing something a little different than most people. I'm gonna do a plant too, but it's a flower. It's a crocus flower. So these have been kind of interesting to me because I just planted these this year. So has anybody heard of saffron?
Yes.
So saffron does anybody use saffron? Do you use saffron? So it is from the crocus flower. The flower is in the iris family. And it grows these little corms. They're not tubers, they're these little corms. They're not a bulb, it's a little bit different. So it's a little bit hairy, kind of a hairy, almost like a hairy little bulb. And you plant that and then it grows this little crocus flower and it blooms in the fall. Does anybody have any idea how many, so this crocus has these stigmas that come out of the flower. So the flower blooms and it has these little stigmas that are bright orange. And that is the saffron. And does anybody have any idea how many saffron stigmas it takes to make 1 pound of saffron?
100,000.
You're close. 70,000. And each one of those stigmas has to be harvested by hand. And so that's why it's the most expensive herb. It's actually more valuable than gold. Saffron, let's see, it sells for up to $5,000 per pound or $350 per ounce. Iran is the highest producer of saffron, and Spain is the biggest importer. Not sure why that. I think Spanish people use saffron in there as a spice more so than most people. Probably the Iranians too. It is actually poisonous to most animals, except chipmunks and squirrels will eat it. And they eat the corms too. It's not only used as a spice, it's kind of a spicy spice, like a hot, probably more like curry maybe? I don't know. I was actually wondering, do you know?
Yeah,
It's mild? Oh, I thought it was more spicy.
it's used.
I don't know, I thought it was more spicy though.
Very tiny amount.
Yeah, you don't need much, right? I guess if you use a lot, then maybe it's spicy. So it's also used in fabrics for dyes, and it's very fragrant, so it's used in perfumes. It's also an insecticide and a pesticide. Well, insecticide and pesticide, are they the same? I thought they were the same. I thought that was kind of funny they said that. They're also used medicinally quite often to balance your mood and help you with stress. It's an antidepressant, and it's an antioxidant, an immune stimulator. The Romans used to bathe in it as a deodorizer and for perfume. Cleopatra bathed in saffron to enhance her allure, and Alexander the Great used it to heal his wounds. So, thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm growing these, so maybe next feast I can show you my saffron, because it blooms. It's a perennial, so it blooms. It'll bloom this fall. I just planted it a few weeks ago. It's supposed to bloom in November. And then it'll get these little stigmas, and then you harvest those, and then you have the, I'm assuming that, oh my, Zane has stickers all over his face. So maybe next I can show you my saffron. Anyway, so I was trying to find a video that would show it more, like, it's not very long. So we'll see if this is, can I do it long? Can I do it full screen? Full screen, here we go. Whoop. There's the corms. That's what they look like. They're really hairy on the, and they're about this big. I thought crocuses, because there's the crocuses that bloom in the spring, and they have a pretty small bulb. I think it's actually, I'm not sure if that's a bulb or a corm. I don't know. I guess it's a corm. These were really big. They were like an inch in diameter. And so I'm kind of curious to see how big those flowers are going to be. It doesn't look like they're supposed to be, and the flowers, the leaves get real tall, but the flowers are way at the bottom, right at ground level almost. So this kind of shows harvesting and stuff. It's a short, just planting them. And that's the flowers. And see the bright orange? That's the saffron. There's 3 in each flower. I don't know, there's wild saffron. So, anyways, that was my amazing fact.
Anne Marie. Smaller Peter.
My amazing fact is on the kookaburra bird. The kookaburra is native to the eucalyptus forests of eastern Australia. It is the largest member of the kingfisher family, with females weighing up to 1 pound and growing up to 18 inches in length. They are a relative of the kingfisher, but they don't eat fish. They eat snakes, lizards, small mammals, frogs, rodents, bugs, beetles, and worms. Kookaburras are often seen waiting for prey on low tree branches or power lines. When prey appears, the kookaburra dives down and grabs the prey with their strong beak. The kookaburra is the only bird in the world that laughs. Its laugh is used to signal their territory to other birds. They live in families with siblings, remaining in the family till they are old enough to look after themselves. They also act as helpers during breeding season. I have a video. Mommy actually played it.
I think I need to start it over.
They're only in Africa, you're saying?
Eastern Australia.
Sorry, my keyboard's.
Usually you can buy
Really eating a snake. Tail instead of the head. It'll get. It'll start. Watch it. It's actually.
Yeah, you can see the snake moving in its throat and its belly and stuff.
This is a python.
Yeah, it's a python.
Watch for the dance. How big is that bird?
They're about 18 inches in length.
Python squeeze, and then he's trying to squeeze his feet.
Desperate.
Python's tail is wrapped around the bird's beak now, making it more hard for it to swallow.
He's uncertain.
Going right in. Yep. Turn around, head out. Wiggling inside of it, see?
That's why the birds look like that. He's very uncertain.
Does this one show?
There is another video of it laughing. If you want to hear it.
I think this one's good.
Video example.
Have you heard that?
No, it's not one. Sorry. My 18-inch swallow small python. I have enough. That one's right there.
Yeah, the snake was so loud. There's the sound of it.
But that was all I had.
Kurt wants to be next.
Why don't you stand on the table?
I'm trying to make that right.
I'm gonna tell you about how fast. Can you guess how fast Kugels swim? Cheetahs swim?
70 miles per hour.
60.
80. 75.
That is fast. That's like a speeding car.
Bone straight so they can run. Like kind of like this. Down here, like not straight.
Well, that makes the bones so that they are flexible. The whole body length is like this, the tail. So they stretch, like totally straight. And they can totally flex back in.
You're gonna have to get on the microphone so we can hear you.
God made the cheetahs to go from their bones were made totally bendy and flexible, so they can totally stretch out, totally stretch in if you run even faster, like Chris said. Galahad.
My amazing fact is about a giant Pacific octopus. Along with 8 arms, an octopus also has 3 hearts and 9 brains. 2 of 3 hearts pump blood to the gills, while the third circulates blood to the rest of the body. Octopus use one central brain to control the nervous system and a small brain in each arm to control movement. That is what was amazing. I thought it was pretty amazing that they actually have blue blood too.
Are Brendan, Crystal, and Abby working together on one?
No.
Okay, Christy? For your fish guys.
Hey guys, this is Lancelot. He is a beta fish. We've been friends for a while now. He actually knows me even after I've been gone for a few weeks and can show signs that he remembers me by direct eye contact or following me when I walk across the room. Stuff like that. Lancelot was actually born in... he was actually born already domesticated, but his ancestors came from Southwest Asia. Beta fish are super aggressive, so their nickname is the fighting fish. That's why Lancelot doesn't have very many friends besides me. Lancelot is actually an excellent jumper. He can jump an average of 3 inches out of the water. I haven't caught him at it, but I have a lid just in case. There are over 70 species of beta fish, and they're very colorful. They're not in the wilds. Lancelot's a lot more colorful than his wild relatives. They're more of a green-gray, so they're a little bit more camouflaged. Beta fish are fighters, but they're small. Actually, beta fish can live out of the water for like 2 hours. It depends on how humid the room is or how dry. Yeah, but they'll jump out of their bowl if you're not careful. But don't worry, because they can live for a while. Because they actually breathe air. They come up every 5 to 10 minutes for a breath. And yeah, they actually, when they're mating, they make bubble nests on the surface. So if you look at a betta fish's tank, a lot of times you'll see lots of bubbles on the top. And the male betta fish will make the nest and then care for the eggs inside of his little bubble nest as soon as it's time for mating. Well, that's all about Lancelot.
Abby? Call her Abby.
So you guys probably have heard something. My thing is about a houseplant, and there's pretty generic things about houseplants. So you probably have heard something similar. But I thought that it's just a fun little story that I found, and I thought I'd share it, and maybe it'll be a cool reminder. So there's this little story. There's an orchid plant that lives in my kitchen windowsill. For the first 2 years in my care, she produced 2 flowers a year. When it comes to houseplants, I am more brown than green-thumbed. Well, I think I am too, because a friend of mine gave me an orchid recently, and it's on its way to a new home, I think. So this performance exceeded my expectations. I put it down to sheer luck, mine, and some serious willpower, the orchids. I was grateful for this 2-flower miracle that survived despite my lack of gardening know-how. But last year was an anomaly. Like many of us, I spent many hours cooking, baking, singing, and talking in my kitchen. I think they're talking about COVID. Probably spending more time in the kitchen than at home. This meant my orchid was the recipient of an exponential amount of companionship and attention. She responded by producing 13 glorious flowers between May and October. I hadn't upskilled, I was just there more. I noticed her more, and yes, I may have directed some conversation her way. But did her blossoms really have anything to do with my presence? Had she been responding to my voice? Something else said, research shows that speaking nicely to plants will support their growth, whereas yelling at them won't. The meaning of words, however, makes a big difference, and the vibration and volume and tone. So this just reminded me, when we're talking to our kids or siblings or whoever's in our house, the way that our tone and everything really makes a big difference, and the vibration. You know, it's a choice to be happy and cheerful, so it really affects the things around us, and yeah, it's a fun little reminder. You've probably heard that talking to your plants or playing music is useful or nice or helps them grow, but just a nice little reminder, so yeah.
Okay, so my amazing fact is about the African buffalo. So these buffalo run in herds of about 2,000, and they can run about 36 miles an hour, and they only give birth in rainy seasons. And what I thought was really amazing about these buffalo is the fact that the buffalo have the ability to vote on a direction where they can go. So only the female buffaloes, though. So how they would do this is they would stand up, stare in one direction, and then sit back down. and then the most buffalo in a direction, with the one direction, that's the way that they would go. And so there's also a few buffaloes that are pathfinders, and these few buffaloes will, for no rhyme or reason, just a few that will go out and find the best way for the buffaloes to go. And so any calves, they will run in the middle to keep them safe from predators like lions. And these buffalo are actually extremely dangerous. They actually have killed more people than any other animal that lives in Africa.
Is it the same as buffalo?
They can be, I guess. They're not. Yeah, there's a couple different species of the buffalo, of African buffalo at least. And yeah, they say they can be quite gentle, but they hold really big grudges. So, like, if a lion would go and kill them, sometimes they'll actually go back to the spot. Then they'll go and they'll charge and they'll kill a lion cub or something. And yeah, just some cool, neat things that these buffaloes can do. And that's about it.
Alessandra?
My amazing fact is on rattlesnakes. So rattlesnakes add a rattle segment each time they shed. And when they shed, they grow out of their old skin and go through the molting process. Their bodies naturally add a rattle. They shed about 2 or 3 times a year. Rattlesnakes usually go about 2 weeks between meals on average. They typically hunt mice, rats, squirrels, rabbits, and birds if they catch them. Rattlesnakes are oviviparous, meaning they don't lay eggs. Females carry and incubate their eggs inside their bodies for around 90 days before giving birth. Most of the time they give birth to 8 to 15 babies at once. Females only reproduce every 2 years. Their fangs are hinged, meaning they lay flat when they're not needed, and they unhinge and extend out when ready to strike.
My amazing fact is a little different. It's about a lake that's in Siberia, Russia. It's called Lake Baikal. It's 5,387 feet deep, and Crater Lake is 1,943 deep. So it's 400 feet below sea level. In the wintertime, it freezes over, and they do ice skating and dog sledding on it. It's approximately 25 million years old. Yeah. The average temperature is 42 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty cool that you want to go swimming. But they do. There, in the wintertime, there are bubbles made from bacteria and vegetation decaying at the bottom of the lake. They emit methane and when they decompose, creating bubbles in the water when the temperature drops through winter. The bubbles then becomes trapped in the ice suspended just below the surface of water. About 80% of the more than 3,700 species found at Lake Baikal are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else on Earth.
Like 1/3 of the fresh water in the whole world. This is a crazy amount of fresh water. Like almost the most fresh water
more than all the Great Lakes put together.
Okay, so mine is a crazy fact, and it is that cows are actually more dangerous than sharks. Turns out the movie Jaws really blew things out of proportion for sharks. Though 80 unprovoked attacks are reported worldwide annually, only an average of 4 people die per year from an attack. While in contrast, cows kill an average of 22 annually. Though some are due to road accidents, 75% were premeditated attacks. In 5 cases, people were killed by multiple cows in a group attack. Group attacks can be surprisingly well coordinated with several dominant cows leading the charge. Another reason to not be scared of sharks? Well, the odds are very low. In any given year, you're 10 times more likely to be bitten by a New Yorker than you are by getting bitten by a shark. So, yeah, you don't really need to be scared of sharks. And if you're still hesitant, maybe think about getting rid of your cows first. You're probably going to die from them rather than sharks.
Zeddy, are you doing one? Yeah.
Baby kangaroos are about 1 inch long when they're born. Some popcorn. Does anybody know how to make popcorn dance?
No.
So, I just have this water here. And,
To get it to dance, what is it called?
carbon dioxide gas.
Yeah, it's the same stuff that we breathe out, huh?
Mhm.
So we need to get some carbon dioxide in here to get these popcorn dancing.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got that. What if we replace the water? Replace the water with something.
Oh my. I don't want it to. Okay, just a second.
Popcorn dancing.
I don't see any popcorn. Oh, I think so too much stuff in it again. Oh yeah, definitely not. Are they gonna dance?
All the popcorn's on the top now.
Yeah.
So what did you change?
So,
What's the difference between these two?
this is water and popcorn. And this is baking soda and popcorn and white vinegar.
And when the baking soda and vinegar react, what does it happen?
It makes carbon dioxide.
And it sticks to the popcorn.
So it sticks to the popcorn and makes it float. Yeah. It's cool. Don't drop it.
That's your amazing fact. How you make popcorn dance.
Uh-huh. Maybe it's all. That's my amazing fact.
Josiah.
Alrighty.
Yeah, if you want to look at it.
Look at that. Look at what? It's working.
Does anyone know how long a giraffe's neck is?
A giraffe's neck? How long?
14 feet.
It's 6 feet long. And a giraffe's tongue is 20 inches long.
Just tap the button once. Try doing it again.
All right. Myself, I wasn't planning on. Well, wait a minute. Let me try. I'm trying to follow the wisdom of the children. Anyway, just teasing. A lot of people know that one of the things I really like or think is parts of creation, of course. Each individual has a particular affinity or an interest or something that I think y'all gave us, each individual. So I thought of something after listening to what's going on, and someone probably already knows the answer, but what I like are birds. What is the highest flying bird? What's the altitude? Hummingbird. Any idea? Well, I'll tell you the altitude, 37,000 feet. That's getting up there. And I think some airplanes or jets fly at that level of different north and south, east to west or something. And it's called the Griffin vulture. And I just thought that was interesting. And then they have a list of 10,000. The other thing, just in quick comment, then I'll turn the mic back over. When I was visiting siblings in here a couple months back, which was a real blessing, my niece told me about a software that I can highly recommend. It's called a Marlin Bird ID, and you can download the database for the whole continent, and you can report back. They have YouTube seminars.
And liberty, eagle, beyond bears, and what a beautiful day in the creation. We're going to talk about some of God's design in His creation, and this is a good example of it right here.
Liberty is captive bred, which means she was born in captivity. She didn't come out of the wild. She doesn't do a whole lot of work in film, but she does enjoy being around people.
They are a majestic bird. They can dive at over 100 miles an hour. They have almost 1,500 feathers with individual nerves and muscles. So they can adjust their feathers to the wind currents. You know, when an eagle is soaring up there, it looks like they're really not doing anything. The thermal is doing all the work. But the book of Isaiah tells us that we can exchange our life for the life of Jesus and soar like an eagle. So what happens? When the eagle is soaring, the thermal is doing all the work, but they're still not doing nothing, because if the wind currents would change, like going across the front edge of the leading feather on the wing, the wind current changes, and all of a sudden she lifts this feather maybe 3 degrees and twists it 2 degrees. Well, that throws the wind off all the other feathers. So she's up there just soaring, but she's making little adjustments. And it's like, that's the exchange life, like Jesus. Jesus is doing the work that he wants to do through us, but we have to make little adjustments too. Because there's some things only God can do, but there's some things that he expects us to do. And the greatest of those is to love him with our whole heart and mind and soul and strength, which we can do by God's grace.
Did you know that Alaska has more bald eagles than any other place in the northern hemisphere? It's a large bird of prey. Oh, it has a wingspan that can go up 7 to 7.5 feet, almost 8 feet in length.
There's a reason that they have this connotation of power and greatness around the world. But one thing that's not so impressive about the bald eagle, their call is a little different. So Hollywood usually dubs over their call with a shrieking cry from, say, a red-tailed hawk. So the next time you hear that iconic sound of a bald eagle, well, you could probably thank a red-tailed hawk for donating their call.
The eagle does not have vocal cords. Well, then how do they make their sounds? Well, they have a little bony area called the syrinx that is down there by the trachea, and as they blow the air across it, it makes the various sounds, a lot of screechy type sounds. The evolutionists tell us that birds came from reptiles. And they will say, well, yeah, look, reptiles have scales, birds have scales on their feet and on the bottom part of their leg. Those aren't scales. They're called scutes, S-C-U-T-E-S, and they have a totally different origin than scales. Scales are a product of the epidermis, the outside edges of the skin, whereas scutes come from deep in the dermis, deep down in. So there's no relationship there. And so I think the more we study science and the more we learn the truth about science, and many of us have been told things that just aren't true, we're learning that the Bible really is true, that what God says is right and true.
There are lots of eagles. Now, you've got the golden eagle, the stellar sea eagle, the harpy eagle, the booted eagle, white-tailed eagle, and most famously in the Americas, the bald eagle. Now, there are 60 species of eagle, most of which live in Eurasia and Africa, but only 2 live in the continental United States. One, of course, is this beautiful bald eagle, and the other is the golden eagle. As you can see, it's not really bald. Mature bald eagles have these white feathers on their heads, which gives them the appearance of baldness, but take a look at that hooked beak and then these sharp talons that this eagle will use for snatching fish out of the water. Right now, I don't want to be a fish. Now, bald eagles have this reputation of power, but they're also known for using that power to harass other smaller birds and steal their food. Apparently, Benjamin Franklin once bemoaned this bird for being the American symbol because it has a bad moral character. He thought that the wild turkey should be the national bird. But unfortunately for the turkey, the eagle stuck. And it's been the national mascot and emblem since 1782. Now, why do we see such incredible beauty and design in nature and yet see animals that have bad moral character? It's because creation is literally broken. Our Creator made a perfect world where everything lived in harmony, but Adam and Eve sinned, and it broke creation. That's the reason that we see animals that harass and bully other animals. It's how human sin affected all of creation. But you know, even in a broken world, we see these remnants of beauty and God's glory, even in the majestic bald eagle.
And did you know that sometimes when a storm is approaching, an eagle will fly directly towards a storm? It will wait for the wind from the storm to arrive. And when the wind arrives, the eagle spreads its wings. And the air will get underneath the eagle's wings. And it will rise up above the storm. Still has to deal with the problem. It has to go through the storm. But God's taught it how to do that with faith and courage. And I thought, wow, if God cares that much for the eagle, how much more does he care for human beings, people who are created in his image? I've had pilots tell me, airline pilots say, that they have seen eagles soaring above the storm clouds. Reminds me of a verse of scripture, Isaiah 40:31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. What an amazing bird.
Mine is on a spider. It's called the bird-eating spider. I haven't read about it in years. And they eat birds, small rodents like mice and stuff like that, and larger lizards, that medium, I guess. They are pretty big spiders.
My amazing fact is about rabbits. The biggest kind of rabbit is a Flemish giant. The world record is 4 feet and 3 inches long. And 50 pounds. 50.
Does anybody else have one that didn't sign up? You have one? Okay, so I'll go then and then I'll hand it to you.
I'll say something because it's coming up in a few days.
Unless you want us to wait and fill in, Michelle, for the rest of the week, because it's getting late.
I'll say one that's really quick.
Right now?
Yeah, let's say that. What's that?
You want to do it right now?
Oh, don't need to really. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna do mine like James did. Only I'm doing it more on the human kind, the babies. These are just some facts that I looked up. Some interesting facts. The heaviest baby ever born and survive, I don't know if anybody knows, was 22 pounds 8 ounces. They were born in Italy. Yeah, imagine that. All those pastries and, okay.
Babies are born without kneecaps, and those fully develop at 6 months. The smallest surviving baby was born in California, weighing 8.5 ounces. That's really little. 10% of newborns' weight is its brain. Babies only form tears from emotional distress around 2 to 4 months. So when they're newborn, they don't have tears. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I have. But. A baby goes through over 2,700 diapers in 1 year. So yay, moms and dads that change all those diapers, and siblings. Okay, babies have 300 bones, 100 more than adults. So some of those fuse together as they grow older. Babies have 10,000 taste buds. Adults have 5,000. 10,000? Yeah. Okay, and then the woman that birthed the most babies was from Russia. And she had 69 children from 1725 to 1765. She had 16 sets of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. Bless her heart. My goodness. I don't know. I didn't add that up. I guess probably not. Every 3 seconds, a birth takes place. Every female, I don't like to just say fetus, but anyway, the baby inside the mom. Every female baby, including your mother, developed all the eggs she will ever have, while as a fetus herself, still inside of her own mom. Because one of these eggs ultimately developed into you, this means you started your life inside your grandmother. So I think I've heard other people say that, but that's really interesting. If your baby continued his first year's growth, the same growth mode, he would be 170 feet tall by the time he was an adult. So they grow fast. And then I looked one more up, and it was like a mom that nurses her baby. They spend about 1,800 hours in 1 year nursing a baby. So that's why sometimes the dads get home and say, "Did you get anything done today?" Your newborn's like, "Yeah, I nursed lots." Anyway, okay.
I thought I'd give an amazing fact, because coming up on the 14th of October, there is going to be what is known as an annular eclipse of the sun. And the reason for this is because the moon is at a greater distance from the earth in its orbit. And so when it passes in front of the sun, it doesn't quite cover up the entire face of the sun. So the path of this annular eclipse is going to be passing from Oregon on down to Texas. And so if you're down near Crater Lake, you can be able to see this path of this eclipse. And I'm going down there to see this. And because the last eclipse that happened, which was on October 21st, 2017, it was known as a total eclipse. So,
Where's the year? What's your shirt says? In August.
didn't I say August?
Oh, you said October.
Well, the one that's happening is going to be October 14th.
That's
Did
okay.
I?
You meant August.
Okay. Well, I had August in my mind, but that's
This one, I have a thing that says October 14th.
That's the annular eclipse. So, and it will be happening, the eclipse will be, I think it happens at approximately 10 o'clock, but the The path will start when the moon starts passing in front of the sun. We'll start at about approximately 8:30 in the morning. And you won't be able to see it here in Dooper, but you will be able to see the partial. It'll be known as a partial eclipse. So that's my interesting fact about eclipses. So.
Alright, so originally, I was actually going to do one on flamingos, so I'll just give the quick one originally I was going to give, but move on to the other one I wanted to go to. The flamingos, interestingly enough, actually eat upside down. So they actually have to put their head under the water to be able to eat. And then I guess how it works is essentially they'll, as they close their mouth, the water will come up, and anything smaller that they're not supposed to really have will come through as well, and then any algae, shrimp, stuff like that they'll eat. But the one I wanted to switch to, because everyone wanted to talk about, the cute animals, and I had to go with my favorite one. So foxes, the obvious one, foxes are great nighttime predators, but one of the ones that kind of surprised me was that foxes were considered solitary animals. Just because, foxes are canines, and anyone who has a dog knows that dogs want to be around you all the time. But unlike other members of the canine family, foxes are not considered to be pack animals, and they'll tend to live by themselves or in a very small family called a skulk, which typically includes the mother fox and around 6 cubs. And apparently, foxes can make over 40 different sounds. If you've ever, as this is saying, if you've ever heard those scream-like howls, you'll probably know the type of sounds that they'll make. They'll make variations of screams, barks, and howls that can range from high-pitched tones to lower tones to communicate different things. Foxes also make use of the Earth's magnetic field to hunt, and they can use this to their advantage when hunting smaller type animals in the high grass. And I actually like watching videos of foxes hunting, because they do that little adorable jump into the air.
Land head first in the snow.
Yep. And actually, people who have domesticated foxes have found out that is in their instincts. So if they were to make a little bump inside their bed, the fox will do that jump as if it's hunting whatever's underneath their covers. People used to fear foxes, but they're actually considered pretty friendly animals. Obviously, if you're trying to keep them out of your garden or keep them out of your henhouse, doesn't seem like it. But they are known to be pretty friendly, curious, and playful, whilst among other foxes or animals that they aren't hunting. There's a long history as well of foxes playing with humans and bonding with them as well. They've been known to play with balls and will often take them from golf courses and gardens. Interesting as well, I didn't know, foxes only reproduce once a year. Foxes breed only once a year, and mating usually occurs in January or early February, where the vixen will, which is the female fox in case you don't know, will remain pregnant for around 60 days and will typically birth around 4 to 6 cubs around March or April. And foxes don't just live in rural areas, which was surprising to me. They do live in cities. Typically, many areas that will have bushes that they can burrow underground is typically where they'll live. But because they'll have that food available because of people throwing out their trash and not finishing their food, that makes it available for them. Speaking of food, they do have a very varied diet. They will catch rabbits, rodents, birds, frogs, earthworms, but they're also not just carnivores. They're actually omnivores as well, so they will go after any berries or fruit that they can get their mouth on. And then the last one would be foxes actually do have impeccable hearing. That hearing they can hear at a very low frequency, so it comes in handy when they're hunting the small animals underground. They'll kind of have an idea where they need to be before they are actually there. And that would be my interesting fact on foxes. Here's another.
Fox is laughing.
Oh, yes.
Oh, dude, all the fox noises, baby.
You scared everyone off.
I've actually done some of these, but I just looked at the notes and it was 17 years ago, so maybe some of you forgot it. So I'm fascinated with the harmony of the galaxies and how that it's almost like they're snowflake and that they were put together in so much harmony that it's almost eerie. I guess we know how, but it just doesn't fit like the traditional story of them just happen to float together and Earth's or sun's gravity pulled this planet in, and anyway, there's just too much harmony with them. So here's some of the fun facts. So the people that study this also say that our measurements, feet, miles, inches, all that is kind of somehow tied into, it's an ancient measurement, and it's somehow tied into these numbers. Maybe it'd work with other things, but like metric as well. I haven't tried, but it comes up with interesting numbers when we use feet and miles. And they have one called a megalithic mile. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. It's like almost 3 miles in a megalithic mile, and somehow that one works out to come up with these numbers as well. So I'll use that once in a while. So diameter of the sun is 864,000 miles, and the megalithic miles that turns out in megalithic miles to be 316800. So this number, you might remember it, 3168 is an interesting number because it shows up everywhere. So the sun's diameter equals that number in megalithic miles. And then if you take the moon, which has a perimeter of 2160 miles, and put a square around it, I could draw this if it's easier too. That also equals 3168 on miles. And if you take the diameter of the Earth and you draw a square around it, it also equals 3168 with an extra 0 on the end, so 31,680 miles. Just kind of strange that those all happen to be exactly coming up with the same number. Then, let's see if I want to skip that one. So diameter of the Earth, and then you take the diameter of the Moon, and if you draw a circle around both of those, if you put them both together and you draw a circle around it, and that also equals 31,680 miles. So it makes a square around and makes that number.
The sun, are you saying the Earth and the moon? Or?
Yeah, I can draw it here. So I think the moon here is smaller, and the Earth is bigger. And then you draw a circle that's this big, that also equals 31,680 miles.
31,680. Oh, are you saying that they were right next to each other?
Yeah, it's like that. Right next to each other.
Oh. I was like, how in the world do you take the distance between the two?
If you were to take the sum of the distance of all 9 planets, so from the sun, you measure out from the first planet, then you take it and measure out to the second, you do that all the time, out to all 9, and you add them all up, that equals 9,954, doesn't mean much, but if you divide that by pi to make a circle out of it, guess what it equals? 160 something. So, kind of a crazy one too.
It's real close to pi, because pi is 3.14.
It's close, yeah. I can go on and on, maybe I should just stop.
What is the significance of that number? It's just that that's the number it happens to equal, or?
It's kind of like say it's harmony in the whole solar system. It's harmony. Now, some people have studied the number a lot more, and they also say that you've heard of the word geometria, which means you turn a word or letters into numbers. And they claim that if you take the word Christ, basically, or Yeshua the Messiah, that equals 3168. There's also ones like the speed of light, its distance from the sun to the earth, and there's a bunch of those equal 3168 too. So there's just endless studies on how it relates to like how Christ being the sun and how it relates to encompassing the earth and time it gets to the earth and all that. There's a lot of things to it. Probably go on for half an hour just reading all these. But I'll have to stop. It's pretty interesting if you want to study more about that.
Well, you have to send me a link. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not by accident. They didn't have it be that way. So.